However, Landman Season 2, Episode 4 focused on more than only Tommy and TL's previous relationship. Additionally, Rebecca Falcone developed a new bond with an enigmatic roughneck she encountered while flying. Rebecca had a one-night stand and woke up in his bed the following morning after drinking to ease her anxiety during the turbulence. Although Landman didn't provide us with much information regarding Rebecca's new romantic interest, we still have some material to examine. Although Guy Barnet, who plays the roughneck, didn't reveal his name in the episode, he is listed as Charlie in Landman's credits. Charlie said he works in the oil fields, but he didn't specify what he does or for whom. Fortunately, we may presume Charlie works for M-Tex based on the promotional images of Landman Season 2 that showed him in the same room as Cami and Tommy. Rebecca and Charlie may have an extremely uncomfortable reunion if that turns out to be the case. That might, however, also indicate that Charlie and Rebecca will begin dating. Rebecca seemed interested in Charlie after she regained her bearings and saw his lovely abode. It's obvious that Charlie likes Rebecca. Charlie and Rebecca could be Landmen if they had more time to get to know one another at work. Rebecca takes a break from her professional responsibilities while Cami tackles M-Tex's multi-million-dollar rig issue in the Gulf. Interestingly, Galino won't compromise with Cami, saying that only predators like Tommy and himself should handle the details. I guess this was Dan's method of discouraging Cami from getting her hands dirty and increasing Tommy.N's newest couple's responsibility and leverage. Beneath all the high drama, Cooper and Ariana also make a positive turn, figuring out a new dynamic that doesn't include Cooper's newfound fortune taking precedence over Ariana's sense of normalcy. Their developing relationship can be compared to Tommy and Angela's erratic and probably messy beginnings, one that is full of passion, toxicity, and a great deal of luck. Even while Ainsley hasn't been used as much in Landman Season 2 thus far, it's also a huge comfort that she is developing her own character in the show. Ainsley will hopefully begin to take more of a humanized rather than objectified path, particularly in the poignant encounter she exchanges with her father near the conclusion of the episode. Her own course going ahead. With Cooper's and now TL's greater involvement, as well as exciting new setups that highlight uncharted territory in the oil industry, such as last week's CO gas, and untapped reserves of the Norris family's past, Landman has found its footing after a relatively safe season premiere. In general, this most recent Landman episode is lifting the standard and establishing a new tone for the entire second season. In the conclusion of Landman Season 2, Episode 4, Tommy goes to comfort Ainsley after noticing her sobbing while watching a Julia Stiles film. Please let me know what she's watching in the comments. No, the movie isn't the reason she's crying, rather, it's her dad's story about his mother that has so infuriated her that she is actually crying. She is so sympathetic that she finds it unbearable that her father had to go through all of that. Tommy responds by slightly altering his song. He has shown himself to be Dorothy and Thomas's worst enemy thus far, however. He discloses a crucial detail that he has been avoiding up until now when he realizes that his animosity toward his parents is harming his own daughter. Why? Because it prevents him from openly hating his parents. Tommy discloses that he has a sibling and is not Dorothy and Thomas's sole child. Dorothy was devastated by her death from SIDS. And Thomas was so disturbed by Dorothy's spiral that all he could do to get through the day was concentrate on his work. Tommy's childhood was terrible as a result. After all these years, why does he still have resentment for them? Perhaps because he believes that's the only perspective he has on his parents. Nevertheless, Tommy starts to believe that it's time to put Dorothy behind him when he sees that his own daughter may be sympathetic enough to feel so strongly for his father and also forgive her grandma for hurting Tommy, despite the fact that she has never seen Dorothy. Angela's suggestion that they relocate Thomas from Prairie View to his hometown so he can spend his final years with his family feeds this idea. Tommy unexpectedly follows Angela's advice and brings Thomas to his home. I had predicted in the first episode that Angela would rebel against Thomas's desire to live with the other Norrises. That must have been my Hindi soap opera brain talking, since I completely misunderstood Angela, and I'm happy that she inspired Tommy to reconcile with Thomas. At this age, I'm beginning to see that harboring resentment is unhealthy. Yes, you should be upset with those who intentionally cause you harm just for the sake of doing so. You should be upset with legislators who do nothing to assist you in relocating after failing to take the necessary precautions to prevent wildfires on your street. However, you should attempt to make amends with your alleged adversaries after a while if you are aware that you were harmed by someone who was also suffering. Giving yourself the chance to live a life free of regret is just as important as giving someone another chance to make amends. Tommy is an empath underneath his tough facade, therefore if he hadn't brought Thomas home, he would have punished himself for it after Thomas passed away. In any case, this episode's Tommy-Thomas plotline brought tears to my eyes. It was, in my opinion, incredibly well written and performed. Tommy initially responds to Ariana's question about why no one is discussing Dorothy by saying that he doesn't have any anecdotes to tell because he doesn't have any pleasant recollections of his mother. He has complied with the funeral, which he views as a formality. However, he then describes how, when he was a child, he discovered an inebriated Dorothy drowning in the bathtub. She treated him like a stranger when he saved her life, then kicked him so hard that he broke his nose. Tommy packed his stuff and headed out of Panhandle as she concentrated on getting herself another drink. He came back to supervise his mother's funeral and select a coffin for her. In light of this, he leaves the restaurant and informs his loved ones that he will wait outside until everyone has finished their meals because he cannot bear to sit next to Thomas, who opted to be away on offshore drilling sites in order to avoid having to deal with his combative wife, leaving Tommy to bear the brunt of her abuse. Following Tommy's departure from the table, Thomas recounts a more enjoyable memory of Dorothy. Thomas acknowledges that he wasted too much time waiting for Dorothy's mental state to recover, but he isn't naive. And while he waited, he lost both his son and his wife. All of the guests, with the exception of Tommy, say goodbye to Thomas when it's time to depart. Tommy refuses to bid his father farewell despite Angela's pleas. Everyone leaves on that melancholy note. Cooper continues talking to Ariana about what she wants from him after dropping her off at her residence. In essence, she says she doesn't want to relocate to a fancy neighborhood for Cooper. Everyone in her area knows her, and she doesn't want to lose that. Above all, she wants Miguel to grow up in her community. Cooper is obviously aware of that, it's simply that she overthinks things and he doesn't talk much, thus, they must find a medium ground where Ariana may express her desires to Cooper and Cooper doesn't merely obey orders, but also expresses his opinions. For the time being, though, Cooper and Ariana are preoccupied with getting into each other's pants, and we catch a glimpse of Jarrell, who has either permanently or temporarily lost his vision due to H2S poisoning. Yes, I realize that's a sudden change. Tommy, Angela, Ainsley, Dale, and Nathan also went on the road after returning to the Norris home. Billy Bob Thornton's fast blinking, as if he's attempting to wake up from a nightmare, is the climax of their argument about Angela's musical preferences. They manage to get to Prairie View to pick up Thomas without killing each other or wrecking the vehicle. However, Ariana and Cooper have arrived before them, and based on their brief exchange, it appears that Thomas has grown fond of Ariana due to her straightforward demeanor. Naturally, Thomas is unaware that Cooper and Ariana are taking a break, but he can see that something is amiss between them. For this reason, he advises Cooper to learn how to stay with Ariana because she is the real deal. When Thomas sees Angela and Ainsley, he has this upbeat attitude. He even jokes around with Nathan and Dale in a cynical manner. However, the moment Tommy speaks, the atmosphere in the room instantly deteriorates. Therefore, everyone goes to the Panhandle Cemetery to attend Dorothy's funeral rather than waste any more time getting to know each other. Thomas declines the priest's request to speak briefly to God about Dorothy because he believes he has already informed God about her and doesn't need to repeat himself in front of others. The gang heads to the bucket for a bite to eat once the funeral is over. Ariana observes that everyone is discussing Angela and Ainsley's eating habits and the events that resulted in Thomas relocating to a retirement community. A wildfire and drought ruined Thomas's home and the entire block, and she questions why Dorothy isn't being discussed. According to her, the purpose of these post-funeral gatherings is typically for the mourning party to discuss the recently dead in order to remember their best qualities and go on with their lives.